Hello my fellow weirdos and horror lovers. Today we have another awesome book review. This time we are looking at Gutted, a horror anthology edited by Doug Murano and D. Alexander Ward. This focuses on the concept of the beauty that is within horror, the fact that there are things that are disturbing and terrifying and awful and horrible and vile, but that there's somehow an almost beauty to that. If that makes sense, if you're a horror fan, you'll get it. So what I'm going to do is the same as what I did with our other anthology, which was Miscreations. I'm going to kind of quickly go through each of the stories, who they're by, very briefly what they're about. I'm not going to cause any spoilers at all, let you know what I thought of each individual story, and then the anthology as a whole. I'll also leave the Miscreations video link down below and maybe pop it up here somewhere so that you can check it out as well, because they're both fantastic anthologies. So let's leap into it. Got my little notes here. So the first story is The Morning After Was Filled with Bone by Stephanie M. Whiteovich. Yeah, I enjoyed this poem. I really liked the subject matter and the way that she describes what is essentially somebody literally pulling their own skin off. I just want to read one little bit at the end, which I loved. I ran my hands over the slick sheen of bone. I laughed at my blindness because I could finally see. You took everything I had, but there in that skeletal smile, I've never been more beautiful, even after all the horrible things I'd done. I really liked that one. It was a really good way to kick off the book, and I definitely think that it keeps the theme, you know, it represents the theme perfectly and kind of gets everything going, and it also does a really great job of kind of representing the cover. Next up we have Picking Splinters from a Sex Slave by Brian Kirk. This is a tough one to read. This is about a gentleman whose kidnapped daughter is located like 6 years later. And she was kept in a box as a sex slave, and the kind of issues the dad has with bringing her back out of that hell and into the real world. It was a difficult one to read for me, being a mum, I have to say. The ending, oh, wow. Then I'm terrible at pronouncing things, and I'm so sorry to everyone out there who's German. Arbeit macht frei by Lisa Manetti. It's about a young girl in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. Again, that one is particularly heartbreaking, I have to say. It's beautifully written, and I think that it's a great example of fiction capturing the tragedy there successfully. Yeah, that's a short story with a real impact, I have to say. Then we have The Problem of Susan by Neil Gaiman. It's kind of like if the Narnia stories were carried on. Susan being the only survivor when she's older, and she's now like a professor of children's books, and she's given an interview to a girl from like a literary magazine. I really like that. I really appreciated that because I've said it before, C.S. Lewis is a big part of everything here in Northern Ireland because he came from here. We've got murals of him up. We've got a little C.S. Lewis park, and the Narnia books are just a part of our syllabus from primary school. We read them all throughout primary school, and I love them. They hold a special place in my heart, basically. So I really enjoyed that one. But it's Neil Gaiman. I mean, is it possible for him to write anything bad? Yeah, no, I doubt it. Okay, then we have Dominion by Christopher Koch, which is teens exploring a kind of abandoned mining town. I loved that one. This is one of my favorites. I really loved the style of it. I loved the storyline, the theme. It is a really good one. Definitely recommend it. It takes a kind of haunted trope and really takes it in a different direction. Then we have Water Thy Bones by Mercedes M. Yardley. It is a kind of a love story of sorts. It's about a guy who has a thing for bones, like literal bones, not like euphemism bones, and he finds a woman who's not comfortable in her own skin, and they form this weird relationship. It is a very surreal piece, but I genuinely enjoyed it. I really it's amazing to see writers just come up with things that are just it's not something that's ever entered my mind before, something that I've never read before, never seen anywhere. The imagination, it's just such a wonderful thing, and I think that shines through with horror. Then we have A Haunted House is a Wheel Upon Which Some Are Broken by Paul Trem, which is one of those choose your own path stories, which I absolutely loved because I loved those when I was a kid. This is about a woman who's visiting her childhood kind of haunted home, not haunted by literal ghosts, but kind of haunted by the ghosts of her past. That is another sort of a sad one, but the way that the create your own story thing works, I think it's brilliant because it draws the reader in and definitely gives you a more in-depth, like you feel like you're in the story, you're part of the story. It makes it more real for you, like you've got a stake in it too. I really, really liked that. And it was also just a lovely surprise to have that in a modern book at all, never mind in the middle of an anthology. I appreciated that. Then we have On the Other Side of the Door, Everything Changes by Damien Angelica Walters. This is about a teen being bullied, fighting with their mum, and then the two both perspectives of both of them after this fight. And that one was another tough read for me as a mum. That one's harrowing. It's really heartbreaking. So far, I mean, this book, it's definitely thought-provoking and emotional at times and incredibly well written. Then we have Repent by Richard Thomas, which is about a corrupt ex-police officer with anger management issues trying to repent and sacrifice himself for his son type thing. I like that. I like crime, and I like crime, I like horror, and I love it when crime and horror come together. I love it when, you've got the kind of traditional sort of detective story, or in this case, you've got the traditional bad cop kind of story, but then you've got an element of like the occult in it, and I love that. Then we've got Coming to Grief by Clive Barker, which is about a woman returning home to bury her mother. And there is a walk around a quarry, which she called the Bogey Walk when she was a child, and she'd made this story up in her head about a creature that lived behind the very frail quarry wall and stalked people. And that's my second of the favourites in the book. I loved that. I think that it has this ever building kind of like tension, and there's this constant kind of like, oh, tension, oh, release, oh, tension, oh, release. It just builds, and it's very subtle, and then it builds at the end. It's really, really well written. Then we have Cards for His Spokes, Coins for His Fare by John F.D. Taff. I have to say, I need to read more John F.D. Taff. I read his Fearing series, loved it. He is an incredible writer. This is about a child dying on a bike crash. And what kind of happens after that. It is beautiful. This would be my third of my favourites in the book. Again, as a mum, oh god, this is a tough read for mums, I have to say. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Which I suppose is the theme of the book. Then we have Seller's Dog by Amanda Gayan, which is about a wolf captured by a drug dealer, which is set free by a girl. It's quite sad, and I did enjoy that one. Wasn't my favourite, but I did like that. Then we have When We All Meet at the Ofrenda by Kevin Lucia, which is about an old man whose Mexican wife has died, and so has his children, and now he's kind of ready to join them. It's really sweet, and again, this is a perfect example of the beauty in horror, because there's some things happening in this which are pretty terrifying and grotesque, but it's actually really beautiful and sweet and heartwarming. You won't understand until you read it, you'll get it. Then we have Hey Little Sister by Maria Alexander, which is raises the ghost of his abusive father to kind of kill him over and over again. Which is again something I've never read before. It has a very abrupt ending, but some very real pain and emotion, very raw, that particular one. It felt very real when you were reading it. Then we have The One You Live With by Josh Merriman, which is about like how everyone has two versions of themselves, the one that they present themselves to everyone else, and then the true version of themselves, and then if there's too much of a disparity between the two, it causes issues. I enjoyed that one. It's about a particular woman and her two versions of herself, and I related a lot to it. Obviously this was an exaggeration, but it did make me pause to think. Let's leave it at that. Then finally we have The Place of Revelation by Ramsey Campbell, which is an uncle teaching his nephew to see the old things, the ancient gods, the ancient spirits that are amongst us. It really reminded me of Hellboy, in the idea that we have no idea that amongst us the ancients are still kind of there, and that we have probably killed quite a lot of them off, but they are still there, they are still hunting and feeding, and that this child being able to see them, he has to learn to acknowledge them and see them for what they are in order to kind of survive. And it's good. It's kind of very much like a child's nightmare come to life. I really enjoyed that. So Yeah, overall, definitely 5 out of 5 for me. Those 3 stories that I mentioned as my faves were fantastic, but all of the stories were brilliant. There wasn't one in here that I didn't like. Even the order they're put in, it was just really well done. So I definitely recommend it. I loved Miscreations, I have to say, and I gave it 5 out of 5 as well, I think. But I'm pretty sure. But I think I like this one better. I really do. So if you did like Miscreations, or if you're a fan of horror anthologies in general, I really, really recommend this. I loved it. I've got another one of their anthologies which they kindly sent me to read, so I can't wait to get tucked into that one along with my million other arcs on my TBR. Is anyone else's TBR just getting out of control? Oh well. Anyway, guys, if you read that book, have you read any good anthologies? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love to hear from you guys. You give the best book recommendations. And if you could subscribe, it would mean the world to me. But that's me for now. Bye.